The Bottom Line with the Gordils is transmitted from Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 p.m. in Radio Latina 5.0 from Latinos to Latinos. The Bottom Line with Dev Gordils is sponsored by El Sueño Americano newspaper, the best newspaper in analysis in the state of Illinois, with over 20,000 copies of each edition. El Sueño Americano is available in all versions: El Sueño Americano Lake County, El Sueño Americano Pilsen, El Sueño Americano Southeast, El Sueño Americano Aurora, and sooner in many more regions. El Sueño Americano, the other side of the news, the best analysis on region, state and national politics. El Sueño Americano is your alternative information, and the championnews.net, the conservative voice of Illinois news and commentary of education, pensions, and politics.
Hello and welcome to The Bottom Line. This is Deb Gordils from WPJX 1500 AM. I'm so happy that you could join me again. And we're here every day, Monday through Friday from 5 to 6 p.m. On today's segment, I have a special guest. Absolutely love this politician, and you will too. I'd like to introduce to you Scott Davis, the 44th Ward Republican Committeeman. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Deb, it's great to be with you.
Thank you. So you and I are kind of cut out of the same fabric. People will probably say we're not politically correct. And we both work out of Chicago. We met some years ago working on a gubernatorial race. Tell me, how long have you been the Republican committeeman in the 44th Ward?
Well, I was elected during the presidential primary back in 2012, so it's about 2 years. This is my my second election cycle as committeeman. And before that, I was an activist, sort of out of the libertarian camp of the Republican Party, and did a lot of activism around things like auditing the Fed, opposing Obamacare, and locally really just targeted what I thought were some freedom issues like red light cameras and speed cameras, and have done some local activism around that. That's a big issue, and a big scam here in the city of Chicago.
So talk to me more about these red light cameras, because I don't think I have a single listener who loves the red light cameras. I know a guy who kind of works on putting the red light cameras up, so he likes them, but I don't think there's anybody else who likes them. Talk to us about what you've done. What's been the issue? How long? Give me all the details on how long the red light cameras have been up. What's the problem? What's the issues? I agree with you. It's a scam. Tell our listeners more about the red light cameras.
Yeah, these things go back about 10 years in Chicago, and Chicago is the red light camera capital of the world. There are over 350 red light cameras in Chicago, doing around $60 million worth of tickets a year. And so what we've discovered, or what's been exposed the last few years, just recently, is that not only is this sort of just a corporatist scam where, some third party and the city split all the revenue, and it's really not about safety, it's about money. There was a corruption story with a provider called Redflex, and they paid off city officials who were in charge of sort of monitoring this red light camera program, gave them tickets to the Super Bowl, bought them 3 hotel rooms, and it really turned into a political scandal that was born in the Daley administration, but sort of got exposed under Mayor Emanuel. Since then, he's hand-selected a different company and gotten rid of that previous company, Redflex, which was so corrupt, to try and sort of paper over this. But the fact remains, this is about money. It's not about safety. There was no public uproar demanding red light cameras or speed cameras, for that matter, which is a new phenomenon in the city. And it's really just about a revenue scam for a government that can't live within its means, and that's the city of Chicago.
Yeah, do you see any progress happening on this? Because I know that people ordinarily don't pay much attention to the cameras unless they actually get a ticket in the mail. And I know that I've paid 3 tickets so far in the mail on red light cameras, and there's no way to challenge them, because if you're photographed, that's it, you're done. I know I was driving down Peterson Avenue in an ice storm here in Chicago last winter, and as I was approaching the intersection, if I would have put the brakes, I would have skidded out of control. I knew that. So instead, I just slowed down and just coasted right through the yellow, and I got a ticket, and they still made me pay the fine.
I mean, you're exactly right. And it's creating this death trap, this unsafe situation where at the point of no return, you have to decide if you're going to speed up or slow down. And in icy conditions, you did probably the right thing, slowed down, went through the intersection anyway, got nabbed for, and then got your picture taken for $100.
Yeah, I did. And I knew there was traffic everywhere. There's a Walgreens right on that corner. I knew there were people waiting there. I had no idea to know in which position my car was going to end up, who I was going to hurt or not hurt. And it just wasn't worth it to me. And so I knew that if I would just make the right decision, I would be fine. And the right decision was to take my foot off the brake, let the car slow itself down, and just slowly let those wheels stay in its traction form and get me through the icy crosswalk. And I got across safely. Everything was fine.
Awareness that there was a red light camera there.
Oh, I was very much aware that there was a camera there, but that had nothing to do with it. I had to do what I needed to do to make it best. I would have been in an accident had I put the brakes on at that point.
But did it create sort of a panic for you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, I'm going to get a $100 ticket?
Yes, both. Everything flashed through my mind. Everything flashed through my mind. Said, oh, my God, the roads are too icy. If I try to stop, I'm going to hurt somebody or get in an accident. I had my children in the car, and I knew that I was going to get nabbed for a red light camera. Now, on any other day, this would have been smart, good defensive driving, very alert, very safe for everybody. It was a split second. No one was going to, I didn't run a red. I was in a yellow situation.
So, I mean, that example right there is it paints a perfect picture. It tells a story of why these are not about safety. They're just about revenue, and are actually creating an unsafe environment in certain conditions. And, we have, as activists, have asked for longer yellows because it's been proven that if you could increase the yellow light time by 1 second, you would decrease the red light camera infractions by 100%.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. We need a mayor to run in this city that runs for what benefits the people. There's no doubt that this is nothing about safety for the people. It is an unbelievable way to, you're right, earn money that's been misspent by this administration and the previous administration.
Yeah, and in the standard yellow light time throughout the entire city of Chicago is 2.5 seconds. We've asked them to increase that to 3 seconds. And just to promote safety, and they refused to do that because they said that would slow down traffic.
Okay, who's responsible for this? The city council, our aldermen? Are all our aldermen the one that voted for something like this?
Yes, our aldermen voted for this program several years ago. This goes back to 2003, and the cameras started showing up a few years after that. So yes, it's our elected officials, and those same people just voted this 2 years ago to implement a speed camera program, of which there are 50 speed cameras now going up around the city of Chicago.
How much money does the city council make now? $90 million?
So the red light camera program brings in about $60 million a year, maybe a little bit less than that, depending on the year. The speed camera program, it's estimated, will bring in over $100 million per calendar year. So this is just another scam.
Okay, I got an idea. An idea, Scott. I say that we make the poster boards, the window boards that have a picture of the old-fashioned red light cameras, red and green, and it's on red, and it says, "Stop him now."
Mm-hmm.
And every single person running for alderman against the guy who has it.
I love that, and I agree with that. And this is a populist issue, and this is a game changer for people in the local elections this year because, you know, there were actually about 13 no votes in the against the speed cameras, which is sort of unusual in city votes where there's often very little dissent. So this one was a little unique in that there was several no votes on the speed cameras, and that means if you could only flip about 13 more seats on the city council, you could have enough votes to overturn the speed camera and the red light camera programs, and then put the pressure on the mayor to get rid of these programs, which are not about safety. They're about revenue and a tax scam on drivers. This is just another scam in what I call the war on drivers. So you got protected bike lanes, you got red light cameras and speed cameras, and now you got this new concept called bus rapid transit. They're going to take out 2 lanes of traffic on Ashland Avenue, which is a major north-south artery in the city of Chicago, and dedicate those 2 lanes to bus rapid transit. And so this is just another thing, another government plan that no one asked for. No citizens have asked for this.
So what they're doing is they're sitting around trying to figure out ways to make money on us.
Yes. So this has to do with contracts. It has to do with government grants. It has to do with handing out jobs, TIF funds. There's all kinds of stuff. And oftentimes it's a corporatist angle. So you've got a private company like Redflex or some other company that's making money on every single ticket that is issued, and that's the same with the speed cameras, the red light cameras, and it's just a scam. We need to fight back at the local level.
When is the aldermanic race? When can we vote the bums out?
Yeah, so this summer, and probably late in the summer is when we'll be able to begin a ballot access to get on the ballot to run for alderman. And I believe the first round will be in February of 2015, so about a year from now. And then Chicago has a top 2 system where if no candidate gets 50% plus 1 in the first round in February, they'll take the top 2 candidates from that first round, put them on the ballot in usually around like April, and there's a runoff round in April, and then the new city council takes effect after that.
Okay, so we need to win like 15 seats, and you know, last time around in the last aldermanic races, there were like 8 runoffs. I mean, there were a lot of runoffs. There
were, but I believe that the state has passed a law since then that's going to make it more difficult to run. So you have to be prepared if you're thinking about running for alderman. They doubled the amount of signatures that you're going to need to get on the ballot because the establishment is afraid because they've been passing all these crazy laws, and now they're afraid people are going to actually wake up and start running against them, and that's what we need. We need people that are tired of this.
Yeah, we're looking for 50 people in Chicago to run for 50 ward aldermanic seats, and we need another 25 people to run for Republican committeeman seats where the Republican who's the incumbent sitting in that office right now is a solid Democrat, and we need to get them out and replace them.
That's very common actually in the city, and you're right. And people can, if they want to get involved and be a Republican committeeman, that election cycle will be in the presidential cycle in the 2016 cycle. That's when you would run for committeeman, is in the presidential primary.
So we need, but the alderman's race are all going to go down February 2015. So we need to start lining up aldermanic candidates right now.
This year, that's right.
When do they start collecting signatures for that?
Well, you can't begin collecting signatures probably in the fall, so around September, October for that election.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see, we'll have to see what the Board of Elections comes up with. But typically it's 90 days. They back it out 90 days from the 180 days from the election is when you would start. Then you can get your signatures, get on the ballot, and then it's typically 90 days until the election.
So it sounds like this summer is the summer to start lining up the aldermen. I know that we personally have the names of about 16 candidates, 60 different wards where somebody has said, I'll run for alderman here, I'll run for alderman here. So that's a lot already off the gun from people who have been contacting the Chicago IRPAC office, Jack Roser's group. I know that Jack Roser is the conservative icon and has sort of been the force behind change in Cook County and is, directly responsible for the Republican branding in the city of Chicago. He's just been amazing. At the time, that's somebody who put his money where his mouth is, and the time and the energy that he has spent on putting a team together directly and indirectly, working coalitions in the city.
Yeah, he really believes that we need a functioning Republican Party in the city of Chicago to make Chicago better and give people a choice, even, if it's going to be difficult to win. We still need to give voters a choice. And that he also believes that a functioning Republican Party in the city is necessary for our state to function politically.
Yes.
And I really believe strongly with that, and I'm part of that movement. So yeah, I agree with you. Mr. Rose has been great for sort of, taking the first steps, the initial steps to building of something that is actually a political, something that actually functions and does the basics at the local level, and I'm firmly behind that.
Great. You told me at the start of the show that you're Libertarian Republican. I'm going to go to commercials right now, but I'd like to ask you a few questions about that. If you have the time to join us for the second segment of the show, we'd love to talk about what exactly that means. I know that you're very influential and were the director of the Ron Paul presidential run here as a Republican. So let's talk a little about that. You've been listening to Scott Davis, the 44th Ward Republican committeeman here in the city of Chicago, which is the Wrigley Field area. For you Cub fans, you know exactly where that's at. This is Deb Gordils, and I will be right back after these commercials with the bottom line.
The Bottom Line with Deb Gordils is transmitted from Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 p.m. in Radio Latina 5.0, from Latinos to Latinos. The Bottom Line with Deb Gordils is sponsored by El Sueño Americano newspaper, the best newspaper in analysis in the state of Illinois, with over 20,000 copies of each edition. El Sueño Americano is available in all versions: El Sueño Americano Lake County, El Sueño Americano Pilsen, El Sueño Americano Southeast, El Sueño Americano Aurora, and sooner in many more regions. El Sueño Americano, the other side of the news. The best analysis on region, state, and national politics. El Sueño Americano is your alternative information, and the championnews.net, the conservative voice of Illinois news and commentary of education, pensions, and politics.
Hi, I'm back, and this is Deb Gordils with the Bottom Line, and we're giving you data every day from 5 to 6 p.m., hoping to educate you and inform you and share with you the happenings in the political world here in Illinois, specifically in Chicago. So I'm coming to you from Chicago, Illinois, on the political topics of the day. We were, on our last segment, we were talking about Obamacare and the need to repeal Obamacare. It's so bad for everyone, Democrats alike. We were talking about the Board of Elections and the need to eliminate the Illinois Board of Elections because in Cook County, the Cook County Board of Elections has dominated the election process here to the tune of 88+% of Illinois citizens who try to run for office are knocked off and have their rights violated, and it is just insane. We've been going over and over on the show the past 3 weeks. Different instances. Today, at noon today, in less than a half hour, Tom Cosgrove, an attorney, is going to stand before the Board of Elections. They are challenging a candidate who clearly has less than 500 good signatures to stay on the ballot. These objectors have worked really hard at showing them where these signatures are bad because they don't match the voter registration card or whatever it is. And believe it or not, the Board of Elections has asked the objector, who's already given proof because they've sat for countless hours and days in front of the Board of Elections voter registration machine, showing them. Now they want them to go out and get affidavits from citizens saying, oh, you're right, that's not me, that is fake. Why don't you tell the candidate who's the crook, who's the one trying to lie to the citizens of Illinois and lie to the border? Why don't you tell them to go get an affidavit that says, yeah, this is really my signature. They should know them. It's their people in their district. They're the ones who went and got the signature. Their circulator went and got it. Why is the circulator not proving up their sheet? Why in Illinois does the Board of Elections say that the circulator, the person who collected those signatures, is not responsible for the validity of those signatures? Instead, the Board of Elections is saying the person objecting should go door to door and revisit those places and come up with some proof that this was all a scam, that this really wasn't obtained. That's putting the burden back on the person so that they're being punished. So if you say that elected official is a crook, the Board of Elections is saying, okay, go out and prove it that they're crooks. And then you come back with the proof and say, I sat in front of your machines and this is what I saw, A, B, C. Then they say, well, now go back and get affidavits for A, B, C. Because your eyes and our hearing officer's eyes are not good enough. And our machine is not good enough. I mean, that's insane. This is absolutely insane. This is what you and I are spending tons of tax dollars doing. We're paying for these cuckoos at the Board of Elections to protect obviously very, very bad and crooked and maybe even bordering on fraudulent petition sheets. So anyway, in less than 22 minutes, the taxpayers' dollars again being flushed down the toilet by a Board of Elections in Cook County that is crooked, and there's nothing anybody seems to want to do about it. Why don't we just get rid of them? Taxpayers need to stop paying for that, and then we just need to close them down, and we got to go something very simple that all the other states are doing. And what are all the other states doing? They are just collecting a fee and making money. Imagine that. States are making money. We should be making money in the state of Illinois by having these 700 plus candidates that want to run all the time pay a $500 or $1,000 fee instead of the signatures to show that they're serious about their candidacy, and let them all run. You're not going to get more than 2 or 3 people. And we had 27 people run for Rahm Emanuel's vacated congressional seat. I know, I was one of the 27 or 24 people running. So if we could have 24 people running for Congressman Emanuel's vacated congressional seat when he went off to be chief of staff of the now terrible administration of Obama, then why can't we just pay a fee and let 5, 6, 4, 3, whatever people run for office? That's the route we got to go, because we don't have the money to support these shenanigans that are going on at the Board of Elections. I don't know about you, but $8 million is a lot of money for us to be spending as taxpayers regularly to keep all these people at the Board of Elections doing nothing that's honest for the people of Illinois. So, on that, let me change the subject really quick. The Republican National Committee is launching a big New Year's program of radio ads against Obamacare. And so they want to link every Democrat who supports Obamacare. So be listening very closely, those of you in Wisconsin and those of you in Illinois here, because I know that we have listeners in Wisconsin. I'm a Bears fan, but I hope you still listen to me. I love cheese, though. So at any rate, let's listen to whatever our Democratic elected incumbents are saying. If they're supporting Obamacare, a health care, this Obamacare that's going to make our children pay for all of our hospital bills after we drop dead, if they are supporting that, you need to ignore these people and not vote for them. You need to vote for your children's future. you can either vote for a Democrat incumbent or you can vote for your child's future America, your child's American dream, because that will be stolen if Obamacare continues to exist. Obamacare, the Seattle Times reported, will send a doctor bill to your children when you drop dead. And I think you have to drop dead at age 55 or older. Not sure what happens if they get a bill if you drop dead before 55, but definitely if you're 55 or over. So, if we get sick, all of us are going to be thinking, well, we're better off dead than alive, and pull the plug and just shoot me in the head now, because I don't want to be a $200,000 loan burden on my kid. So our kids are in a position where they're going to be living without their parents. Their children are not going to have grandparents, because we all need to die if we're ill. Unless we're fit and strong and cancer has not attacked us. I mean, this is crazy, you guys. This is insane. This isn't about party politics. This is about something bigger, something crazier, something nuts. Obamacare is all of those things. We need to get rid of it. All right, so I hope that the RNC does well with their ads. Somebody else who does ads is the America's PAC, led by Tom Donaldson. They don't do ads in English. Yeah, I think they, I'm not quite sure if they do ads in English, but they are definitely, America's PAC does ads in Spanish, and they do them all over the Midwest. So you might have heard their ads in Wisconsin and definitely here in Illinois if you listen. Si eres bilingual, como dicen. That means if you're bilingual. And so by the way, I was told that I know that before the show begins, it's all Spanish music. And then after the show is over, it's all Spanish music. This is traditionally a Spanish programming show. But they said like 60% of their listeners also speak Spanish. So I hope you're sticking around to listen to what I have to say. And every now and then, I will let you know that, yes, I do speak Spanish. Yo hablo la idioma de español porque soy Latina. Yes, I'm Puerto Rican and Mexican. How's that for a mixed? Two groups that rarely get together. Although are constantly stereotyped and grouped together, they rarely on their own come to a Jesus meeting. Mainly because the cultures are different. So, like, my Puerto Rican side is completely different than my Texan side, which has Mexican roots. So, different types of music, different types of food, extremely different music, extremely different food. So, anyway, let's get back to the radio ads by Tom Donaldson that get put out in the Midwest. And the commercials talk about abortion or gun rights or family values, same-sex marriage. And it shares with the listener what is happening in those arenas and how that affects them. And the listeners of those ads are always surprised to realize that the ads are put on by conservatives leaning to the right. And if you're conservative, you have to run with the Republican Party. And don't give me this stuff, well, the Republican Party, some of them have cuckoos. There's cuckoos everywhere. I don't care what party you belong to. But conservatives are all gathering to the right, and they are voting to the right, and they are voting Republican. And so if you are a conservative, un conservador with conservative values, as a Latino or not, you should be voting Republican because you are conservatives. And the left that all gather in the Democrat, no matter what, even if they're Marxist socialists, still have to stay within the Democratic realm. They all go to the left and they vote and support things that take down conservatives on the right. Now, Latinos are conservative. Like 99.9% of them are conservative. They haven't been voting that way. They haven't been voting as Republicans, even though the Latinos' political viewpoint is in line and right with the same value system that Republicans hold. They don't believe in same-sex marriage. Latinos don't believe in same-sex marriage. My God, they're overpopulating the world. obviously they believe in heterosexuality. So Latinos are naturally believe in the value of men and women as traditional marriage. Men and women, even in non-traditional marriage, they believe in men and women being together. That is what Hispanics believe. And Hispanics also believe in family values, as, you know, every good family does, which is tied to this opposition to same-sex marriage. So, you know, in these ads, when they find out that their conservative ads are Republicans, they are more likely to listen to Republicans on non-social issues like taxes. So America's PAC is doing a great job. I'll be mentioning them here and there, and Tom Donaldson, and they also are supporters of El Sueño Americano. So you'll see America's PAC's ads in there. And you should be buying an ad if you have a business in El Sueño Americano, or downloading the newspaper to read it at www.elsueñoamericanonews.com. I'll be back with more with you in just a bit. This is Deb Gordils on The Bottom Line.
The Bottom Line with Deb Gordils is transmitted from Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 p.m. in Radio Latina 5.0. From Latinos to Latinos. The Bottom Line with Deb Gordils is sponsored by El Sueño Americano newspaper, the best newspaper in analysis in the state of Illinois, with over 20,000 copies of each edition. El Sueño Americano is available in all versions: El Sueño Americano Lake County, El Sueño Americano Pilsen, El Sueño Americano Southeast, El Sueño Americano Aurora, and sooner in many more regions. El Sueño Americano, the other side of the news. The best analysis on region, state, and national politics. El Sueño Americano is your alternative information, and the championnews.net, the conservative voice of Illinois news and commentary of education, pensions, and politics.
Hello and welcome back to The Bottom Line. This is Deb Gordils, and Scott Davis is here with us. He is the 44th Ward Republican Committeeman, and at the end of the last segment, we talked a little bit about what he had mentioned in the earlier part of the show, which is he's a Libertarian Republican. He was the director of the Ron Paul presidential race. Scott, share with us, what is a Libertarian Republican?
Well, I mean, I think libertarians, there's a lot of different flavors of libertarianism, but, you know, I consider myself a libertarian Republican. I'm concerned with fiscal issues, so our debt, deficits, taxes, you know, good government, transparency.
Red light camera scams.
Individual liberty, personal freedom, those kind of issues.
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in social issues all that much. It's just not something that motivates me. I believe that you know, our government at every level, particularly the city of Chicago, faces severe fiscal crisis in the coming years, and that most of the effort of our local politicians is to sort of get people to ignore that and not acknowledge it, and so, you know, in my opinion, I want to get out there and work within the Republican Party to rebrand it in a way that can appeal to younger demographic and to a more independent demographic, people that care about, you know, how much they're paying in taxes, where their tax money is spent, and to ensure that their freedom and individual liberty is not being taken away by, you know, sort of a shadow tyranny.
Yeah. So it sounds to
nanny staters.
You know, for our listeners, and a lot of our listeners are new to information regarding the Republican Party. This is a Spanish television station, and so there's a lot of Spanish. It's all Spanish programming before my show and after my show. I think in a 24-hour cycle, this is the only English programming that occurs on this show. 60% of the listening audience during this 23 hours of programming, 60% of them are bilingual. And so the hope is that during this hour, those 60% that are bilingual stay on board, and that the other 40% of our listeners are people who come on like you and I and everybody else who is coming to this station specifically to hear this time slot. We don't have very many Republican women out there who have shows, much less Republican Hispanic women que pueden hablar español, who can speak Spanish and kind of have a political background here from Cook County, which is the breeding ground for politics across the country in terms of Democrat battles that we have to have between both parties. So talk to me about Ron Paul. He was a Libertarian Republican, and the Republicans have not just a strong conservative group that I belong to, a Libertarian group that you belong to. They also have Tea Party members, and we're going to get some Tea Party people on the show to talk about that. Tell me about the Libertarian Ron Paul, and of course his son, who we all love, and we all stand with Rand. Rand Paul is a big fan of El Sueño Americano newspaper and wrote a really nice note to Jack Roser and I about it. Tell me a little bit about Ron Paul and his son Rand Paul, and what do you see as the future of Rand Paul in the libertarian movement within the Republican Party?
Sure. Well, I first discovered Ron Paul in 2008 during the Republican primary. John McCain had pretty much locked up the primary, but there was this guy that was still in it, and he was running in these, sort of late scheduled primaries and caucuses, and I was intrigued by him, and I just wanted to learn about him and read a couple of his books, and always thought of myself as a conservative until I discovered Ron Paul, and I discovered that even though I believed a lot of my beliefs were conservative, I was really a libertarian, and I sort of had this awakening. So I got involved in that movement in 2009 with an activism group called Campaign for Liberty. And, Ron Paul is really interested in economic issues, freedom issues, limited government. And then one thing that sort of sets him apart from a lot of Republicans is his stance on foreign policy and a more reserved, a more restrained, and a non-interventionist foreign policy, sort of leave others, to sort of deal with their problems and not be the police of the world. So that was really something that attracted me and attracted a lot of young people. Yeah,
let me ask you something about that. You were at the conservative town hall meeting last night, and there was a whole discussion open to the immigration issue as either a foreign policy problem or a domestic homeland security problem. At any rate, with that kind of ideology, not to get involved and police the world, given what you heard last night, is there space within the Republican ideology of libertarians to say maybe we have to hold Mexico accountable?
Mm-hmm. I think we would look at it a little differently. I think that from a libertarian perspective, we have to look at the drug war, which is front and center in Mexico, and a big part of their problem. Immigration is an issue, and Ron Paul actually, stood firm on legal, sort of enforcing the immigration laws on the books and protecting our border. And he actually had a sort of a famous line, or often repeated line that we shouldn't be protecting the borders of Pakistan and Afghanistan. We should be at home protecting the borders, of our own country. So he was someone who was firm on immigration. But then there's other flavors of libertarianism that are sort of open to, letting people in and giving them a work permit and letting them come to this country and succeed. More of a Gary Johnson, who also ran for president as a Republican, more of a Gary Johnson open policy to immigration and let people come in here and work and pay taxes and put them on that path to citizenship that we often hear about. So I think there's different schools of thought within the libertarian movement, and it sort of reflects some of the views that you have in the more moderate area of the party. There's a big risk right now, and there's a rift in the party on immigration, and I think you saw Speaker Boehner sort of take an aggressive move to try and advance a bill, and he had to back off of that move just recently because there was a threat that the party would split. So I think that's a real threat. We need a leader, someone who can have a strong policy on immigration, I'm someone that doesn't believe the government can do much about this. I think the government is more in the way of and causing the problems than solving them. So I'm more of I guess more of a classical liberal thinker on immigration, and I line up more with the Gary Johnson view on that, and that we should welcome people who want to be here and let them work, and if they desire to become a citizen, then we should put them on a path to do so.
Yeah, right. And that is a view that I think a lot of Mexicans agree with you on. Mexicans have the highest deportation rate of anyone in the world in terms of getting rid of people who are not Mexicans that are in their country. Needless to say that, the poor country of Mexico gets people going into their country illegally because the United States border is so flimsy. They're sort of stepping on Mexico, trying to get into the United States. And so you have a lot of maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 other nations, other countries that are flooding the country of Mexico because the border is so easy to get through. And the Mexicans authority do a really good job of deporting all of those other people back to their countries before they can get into the United States, but they can't do it alone. And so there has to be a partnership between the Mexican department and the American department in addressing, this concern. Of course, I have other concerns. I'm extremely, extremely concerned about the poverty that is in Mexico and the human rights violations that come with that kind of depravity. I think we really need to address basic needs, basic human needs for the people of Mexico. And I know that this was something you heard me talk about yesterday at the Conservative Town Hall, which, of course, happens every Wednesday. I'm going to give it a little plug at 3832 North Lincoln Avenue if you get an opportunity to stop by there. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. On Wednesdays. So tell me about Rand Paul.
I think you made some really great points, too, with that. It is a foreign policy issue, and we have a close partnership with Mexico for trade. But you're right. I mean, we could do more to hold them accountable for their,
I know that Newt Gingrich met with the Mexican government a couple of times.
It's approaching being a failed state with the civil wars and the drug war that's going on in that country.
Yeah, Michoacan is up in arms right now. I mean, that's crazy. Could you imagine if one of the states in America was like that right now?
No, I can't. And that's one of our neighbors is approaching becoming a failed state. At least some of their regional areas of that country are approaching becoming a failed state.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt that Michoacan right now is a failed state. It's totally lawless right now. There is the federal government is sending troops already in there. The people who are armed are not going to back off from protecting their family because they have been so tortured, abused, and murdered by the lawlessness with the drug cartels in there. And so it is, even though the federal government has made advances and has taken over, I think they said 5 of the cities within that state, the people still are saying, so if you leave, when you leave, it's all going to turn back again. So they're not going to give up their arms, and they're asking them to give up their weapons and their arms. And the people, the citizens, are saying no. I mean, what would you do in that position? I'd say no too.
The militia movement, it's a militia movement, and in a way, I can respect that. I mean, the people were sick of not, of having lawlessness and disorder, so they took matters into their own hands.
Yes, and it
had a mini revolution. So. I believe in, personal freedom and self-government, and I think that the people of that state sort of do too.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt. And you could Google this stuff. I mean, we're not making this stuff up. You can Google it and see for yourself what's going on there. Talk to me a little bit about Rand Paul. What a dynamic, my love for Rand Paul began when he did the filibuster. I'm like, who is this guy? And he actually, we were going to print on El Sueño Americano with the front page of our newspaper, and I don't even remember what the front page story was going to be. And I called, we work on this paper sometimes through the night, and it was sometime around midnight. I said to Raul as we were working on the paper, I said, okay, stop the presses. It's so funny. It's so classical. Stop the presses. We're changing the cover page. We're going to cover the drones. And he's like, the what? I'm like, the drones. There's 65.
It was a huge story, and, he's sort of picking up the banner of the libertarian movement within the party and running with it in a really unique way as a senator, and using the filibuster, the traditional filibuster, and no one had really used that in that way for a while, and then you saw Ted Cruz try to use it as well, and it has a dramatic effect in sort of raising an issue up to national. To make it a national story, and all he wanted was an answer from the president on would he use a drone to assassinate an American citizen, and it was difficult for Eric Holder and the administration to just say no.
I know, isn't that crazy? I'm like thinking, of course you should say no, and then he says, well, it is against the law, and I'm thinking, yeah, but you got a pen and a phone.
And so, Rand Paul is a dynamic character. He is not his father. He's not maybe as libertarian. He's a little more conservative. But he definitely represents a lot of libertarian views that are essential to a Ronald Reagan-type Republican coalition. And that's what we need to win again. And so I'm a very strong Rand Paul supporter. He has actually announced that he's going to be filing a lawsuit or joining a lawsuit to sue the Obama administration for the NSA phone tapping and collection of our personal data.
I mean, listen, President Nixon, a Republican president, was impeached and removed as a president because he knew about wiretapping, one wiretapping incident on one group, on one phone. This guy is wiretapping the entire country and other nations around the world, and he's still the president? The hell is going on?
Yeah, so it's official policy, and there are supporters in both parties, frankly, that think this is necessary, and a lot of independents, a lot of course, libertarians, and even a lot of conservatives now, after the IRS scandal and some of these other scandals, are waking up to this and saying, so we really want to empower our own government to snoop on us in violation of our Fourth Amendment rights. And I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to this and say no.
Well, that's just it. I try to tell people this isn't just about Obama. This is about an entire political party that supports the takeover of the liberties of its citizens, the freedom of its citizens. This is scary to me at every level.
It's scary stuff. It's a slippery slope to tyranny, and this is something that you have to fight back on. And this is a battle that Rand Paul is choosing to fight, and he's going to fight it through the court system now. Since we were unable to sort of disable this program through the legislative process.
Yeah. This is, you've been listening to Deb Gordils here on The Bottom Line with Scott Davis, the 44th Ward Republican committeeman, and also a direct person who facilitates Republican libertarian activity in Chicago, and with great success, and in Cook County. And if Scott's available, we'll talk more about that on our next radio segment. You've been listening to Deb Gordils. We'll be right back after these commercials.
The Bottom Line with Deb Gordils is transmitted from Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 p.m. in Radio Latina 5.0, from Latinos to Latinos. The Bottom Line with Deb Gordils is sponsored by El Sueño Americano newspaper, the best newspaper in analysis in the state of Illinois, with over 20,000 copies of each edition. El Sueño Americano is available in all versions: El Sueño Americano Lake County, El Sueño Americano Pilsen, El Sueño Americano Southeast, El Sueño Americano, Aurora, and sooner in many more regions. El Sueño Americano, the other side of the news. The best analysis on region, state, and national politics. El Sueño Americano is your alternative information, and the championnews.net, the conservative voice of Illinois news and commentary of education, pensions, and politics.
Hello and welcome back to the bottom line. I wish that Scott could have stayed on the line with us, but he had to get back to work. He has just been an absolute blessing to all the Republican activity on the north side. He's responsible for vetting candidates and supporting candidates and working to improve the Wrigley Field area, not just for Cub fans, as you heard, through supporting projects that will be a better development project for the community. But he also addresses those speed light cameras and the red light cameras. And Scott did not get an opportunity to give you his website or his phone number, but I know that you could find Scott in the 44th Ward Republicans. So if you Google 44th Ward Republicans, Scott Davis, you'll get an email number where you can email him and a phone number where you can call him. You can also reach Scott Davis on Campaign for Liberty's website. He is the Illinois Campaign for Liberty director, and there's many different counties where they have or chapters where they have members in case you're interested in joining Campaign for Liberty. So it's been a pleasure having him on the show, and I'm grateful that he came here, and hopefully we'll get him on the show again. He's got a lot of important information. But what did we get out of today's show? Number one, that red light cameras and now speed cameras in Chicago is only a revenue maker. It has nothing to do with safety. It has nothing to do with protecting the citizens. And it brings in $160 million to the city council and the mayor to spend the way they want. And so when they sit down and they create these plans, really what their city council is doing is they're paying people to come up with ideas on how they can get more of our money. How can they get more of our money? And so, I don't know about the rest of you, but we are so overtaxed. We are so overtaxed, one of the highest taxed citizens in the country right here in Illinois, and especially in Cook County. And we need to address this, and we need to ask our legislators to vote against it. We need to vote for candidates that hold the line on taxes. I know that there's many organizations like the Taxpayers Foundation, which supports issues relating to keeping the tax down, and we need to support candidates who say they're going to hold the line on taxes. So it's been an interesting show in that we had an opportunity to talk about Rand Paul and Ron, his father, Ron Paul. And who knows what's going to happen in 2016 with the presidency. We might see, I think that it would be in the best interest of this country with the numbers to have a Republican Latino candidate like Ted Cruz. And he's a, freshman senator, so he may feel that it's too early to come out. But I don't think it's ever too early to come out as a leader. Look at what zero experience and zero accomplishment President Obama had as a U.S. senator. I think he was only a few months into being a U.S. senator when he announced his run for presidency. And he was a state senator here in Chicago. We didn't even know about him. We didn't even hear about him. You'd think with a name like Barack Obama, somebody would have heard about him or anything. So he sort of went under the radar here until he ran for president. And so I think that the Democratic Party is going to have a serious problem on its hand finding someone who's credible that could regain the trust of the Democrat voters. Democrat voters are sick and tired of the lies. Democrat voters are sick and tired of the taxes. Democrat voters are sick and tired of hearing that they want to help the poor and women, but not seeing any results. When you have Republican conservatives giving 30% more in charitable contributions out of their own personal pocket to take care of the overwhelming majority of Democrat voters, and their own party isn't doing that for them, and their own party is trying to just spend the money that they tax them on. So really, when you get that red light ticket or speeding ticket through those cameras, and you give that money to the government will give you back that money maybe in food stamps or unemployment or something else. So they're not helping you. You're helping yourself. For that, you might as well keep the money and do better for yourself. So it's kind of a cycle we need to break out of, because if you don't break out of this cycle of voting for people who are going to continue to tax you, only to tax you so that you could fight with them to try to get a percentage of that back, this is insanity. This is a crazy cycle. So we want to know that Democrat voters need to reevaluate their candidates. Look at who you voted for. Find out what they represent. What did they vote for? And this is public record. I mean, you could Google them. You could Google in Springfield, the legislative department, and find out how they voted. What was the roll call on the vote? Who voted yes and who voted no? And so I know last night at the conservative town hall, one of the things that they were saying was that Dick Durbin, a Democrat, voted over and over again against an immigration bill and against an immigration proposal of any kind, because he did not want to address immigration. And so this is not something that's a lot of people talk about. And so we really need to reevaluate the politicians and the political parties that are going on. You know, off the air, I had a chance to talk to Scott about a Republican race in Elk Grove Township, Elk Grove Village. And this is a fight within an established Republican Party that's there, that plays footsies with the Democrat political party, and very little is getting done for the people of Elk Grove Township. And so when you have politicians from both parties that get together to benefit themselves, the people lose out. And so hopefully we'll get Scott Davis and the candidate who's running in Elk Grove Township, Scott Litko, to come in and be on the show. Scott Litko has been on our show before. Litzo was on, I want to say, about like a couple weeks back. But a lot's been going on there. There've been a lot of battle. There's a fight in Elk Grove Township Village for power and authority, and sort of Scott Davis's guy, Scott Litzo, is a threat to that power. But you know, you got to bust up power like that. You know, they have a non-aggression pact throughout the northwest side of Chicago and up in the northwest suburbs, and the non-aggression pact pretty much says, you can run, we'll support a Republican as long as the Republican will let us keep doing whatever we want to do as Democrats, and that we can continue to control. So they cut these deals and the people lose out. The people are not represented. They both are represented. Their own political positions are represented to continue to vote on legislation that doesn't help us, like these cameras. And like these red light and speed light cameras, and like these other taxes, and like the price of city stickers and the price of licensing a car. I recently heard that if you buy a car now in Cook County, and it's a used car, and you buy it from somebody on the street, you know how they put for sale signs on their cars, and then you go to buy it, that because you bought that car on the street, you have to pay a Cook County $300 tax. How crazy is that? For buying a used car, instead of buying a new car, you now have to pay a Cook County used car sale tax. The buyer does. And when you go to the currency exchange or to wherever, they give you a piece of paper that says, you sign a piece of paper saying that you are fully aware of your Cook County tax that has to be paid within a year or something like that. And this is the deal that you have to sign, and they're not enforcing it right now. I thought it was absolutely insane because it already takes you almost over $1,000 to license a vehicle. Once you get it, you have to pay for plates and registration and the city sticker and all of this stuff. But now you also have to pay buying a used car off the street tax. Even if you buy it from your aunt or your uncle or your father or your mother for $1, you still have to pay a Cook County used car tax, buying a used car tax. It's crazy. So we obviously need to address this, and we need to stop voting for these people that keep putting these kinds of fees and taxes in our way. So I hope you've enjoyed our show today. We're coming now to the end of the segment. We're on Monday through Friday from 5 to 6 p.m. You've been listening to The Bottom Line. I'm Deb Gordils. We talk politics every day, local and national. And we're really happy to have a great guest on our show today, Scott Davis. And we will have him back on this show. You've been listening to The Bottom Line. You have a good evening. You take care. You be safe. You stay warm. And God bless.
The Bottom Line with Deb Gordils is transmitted from Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 p.m. in Radio Latina 5.0. From Latinos to Latinos. The Bottom Line with Deb Gordils is sponsored by El Sueño Americano newspaper, the best newspaper in analysis in the state of Illinois, with over 20,000 copies of each edition. El Sueño Americano is available in all versions: El Sueño Americano Lake County, El Sueño Americano Pilsen, El Sueño Americano Southeast, El Sueño Americano Aurora, and sooner in many more regions. El Sueño Americano, the other side of the news. The best analysis on region, state, and national politics. El Sueño Americano is your alternative information, and the championnews.net, the conservative voice of Illinois news and commentary of education, pensions, and politics.